Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a full tang knife like this. Full tang just means that the metal of the blade carries on full thickness all the way through the handle, and then you glue on wood scales either side, and those scales are secured by pins. This knife has been one of my most requested tutorials after I showed the video of me making it. This is the design of the knife which we're going to be making in part 1 of the tutorial, and by the end of the tutorial it should look something like this and be polished up like this. This knife is made out of some 4mm thick 01 tool steel. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you every step of the process, including acid etching here, and as you can see I've acid etched in The Art of Weapons, and I'm going to be showing you how to do all of these things with hopefully the least possible amount of equipment. But if I do use some equipment, I'll tell you other alternatives that you can use if you don't have that. I'm also going to show you how to make a sheath like this with magnets that hold the knife in place and a little pin which goes into the handle and then holds it on like that. So let's get started. So first you need to design your knife. You can just copy this design off the screen right now if you really want to, or you can make up your own design, or you can just take a random design off the internet. So first you need to transfer your design onto the steel which you're going to be using. This is some 3mm thick carbon knife making steel, but you can use most steel as long as it's got a high carbon content so that it can be heat treated. What a lot of people use is old files which they temper, and then they're much softer so that they can be cut out. And files are really good because they've got a very high carbon content and usually they're not that expensive. So I'm going to be cutting out the steel with an angle grinder. These aren't very expensive and they're pretty much essential if you want to be cutting out steel thicker than 2mm. I'm going to be using a very thin metal cutting disc to cut it out. While using the angle grinder I'm going to be wearing thick leather gloves and safety goggles because it makes a lot of sparks. So now I'm just going to keep on cutting it until I'm pretty accurate to the profile of the blade. And it doesn't have to be exact, it's just got to be close. So once you've cut everything down into a basic shape, it's time to start filing it into a more precise shape, and I'm going to be using a half round metal file for this. So now that I've got the knife shaped to exactly how I like it, I'm going to start grinding the bevel for the blade. So for grinding the bevel on the knife, I'm going to be using my bench grinder and my bench sander. You could probably also use an angle grinder, but I'm just going to be using the bench grinder and sander because it's much more precise. And with the angle grinder, if you slip just a tiny bit, then you would probably ruin the whole knife. And what I'm doing is I just press the knife against the bench grinder and then I grind it until it's about halfway grinded down at the angle which I want to, and then I finish it off with the sander to get any deep scratches out. So as you can see here, I've finished just grinding this edge and I've done it. I think it's quite good the way that I've done it so far. So that's this edge done, and as you can see it's gone halfway down the steel, so right at the very end here this is only halfway through, so now I need to do it on the other side. So once I've done one side, I'm going to start doing exactly the same on the other side, and you want to make it so that when the blades meet in the middle, then it's completely even. And you also want to make it where the grind starts. You want to make that even on both sides, and you want it to start like straight away, not starting as a curve. Right, so I've grinded both sides with the grinding wheel and then touched up the edges with the sanding wheel just so that there's no really big deep scratches in it. And as you can see, both of the blades on each side come and meet in the middle, so then this is actually a blade. It's not very sharp at the moment because obviously I haven't heat treated it or sharpened it, but then also the spine of the knife gets gradually thinner as it goes along to a really razor sharp point, and that's really good. Also, as you can see, it's even where the grind starts here, so it starts evenly, it's not more on one side than the other. Now I'm going to make all of these back bits on the blade and all of the edges nice and smooth. So to do this I use a technique called draw filing, and this is basically just to get all of the deep scratches out from the files and make all of the scratches in the blade going horizontally down the knife. So first what I do is I just get a file, normal Weta working file, and just rub it along horizontally to the knife along the blade and along the spine of the knife until all of the edges are smooth with horizontal lines going down them. Then I move on to using sandpaper, and I keep on using the sandpaper, drawing it backwards and forwards up and down the knife spine and different bits of the handle until it's all shiny and the sandpaper is no longer removing any more scratches. Then I move on to the next grit of sandpaper until I'm all the way up to 400 grit sandpaper. So now that I've polished up all of the back bit until it's quite smooth and shiny, I'm going to start doing some file work on the back. And here, as you can see, I've just marked on with just a Sharpie pen every half a centimetre or 5 millimeters along the spine of the blade. So first, with a triangle file, I'm going to make a notch every other line, which I did with the pen, and then I'm going to do it every other line on one side and then do it every other line on the other side, so that then it's alternate lines going down the blade. Then I'm going to take a rat tail file and just grind a semicircle using the file into the spine of the knife until it goes halfway through the metal, so it's halfway thickness through the metal, and then I'm going to do that on each of the notches which I created. So as you can see on the back here, I've just cut in circles with the rat tail file just halfway into the steel, so that it's halfway across and they get less and less as you're going along, and I've done it on alternate ones, so there's 10 millimeters in between each one. Now I'm going to do the same on this side. So now I've filed it in so that the grooves go equally down on each side, and I just used some fine sandpaper just to get rid of the pen marks which I had, and as you can see they also look quite good down here. Now I'm going to round the corners of each of these circular grooves so that it looks like it's curving and not with these sharp edges. So now when I've done, it creates this really nice kind of wavy line effect going all the way down the back of the blade, and I think it looks really good. So that's all the file work that I'm going to do on this knife. Some people do like to do it so that it goes all the way down the handle and sometimes all the way across the whole of the handle and the whole of the knife all the way up to the blade, but I prefer to just have the simple, just the flat metal like this, because sometimes when the file work goes there it can get covered in like glue and it doesn't look very good when that happens. So now I'm going to show you how I got this rough scratched side like this all the way up to 400 grit so that it's nice and shiny like this. So first I start by wrapping some 80 grit sandpaper around a file, and then I just rub it on the metal until I've got all of the deep scratches out of the metal, and then once the sandpaper is no longer removing any more scratches, I then move on to the next grit of sandpaper, and I keep on doing that until I work my way all the way up to 400 grit. So now as you can see the knife is shiny on both sides, and both sides are polished up to 400 grit, and so is the back here and all of these edges going all the way down here. So thanks for watching guys, that was all for part 1 of the tutorial today. Stay tuned for next week's part 2 tutorial where I'll be drilling the holes in the handle for the handle, and I'll be heat treating the knife. So by the end of part 1 of this tutorial, your knife should look something like this by the end of this tutorial. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button down below, and also favourite and comment and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions for other things which you'd like me to make tutorials on, just post a comment in the comment section down below.